Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Shall we start? Now it is 2:30 in the afternoon. We are having only 1.5 hours. It is a very big subject,
Sure.
a very, very important subject. Let us complete it as early as possible, covering all the things. So today, let us know about retirement benefits. What are the retirement benefits? Once the employee enters into the service, after working for some time, he has to leave the service also. After leaving the service, what are the things he is going to get? That we are going to discuss today. According to present situation, we are having both old pension scheme as well as new pension scheme. Old pension scheme and new pension scheme in our railways. Let us see how the employees, how the candidate can enter into the railway service. What is the procedure we follow? So what is the mode of entering into the railway service? The first one is, it is a direct recruitment through UPSC, RRB and RRC. Direct recruitment through UPSC and RRB as well as RRC. Then appointment on compassionate grounds. In our railways, one scheme is there. Suppose any employee dies while in service, his family will be given, one of his family members will be given appointment on compassionate grounds, either wife or husband or children. These people are eligible for appointment on compassionate grounds. Next, appointment against sports quota. Every year we recruit some sports candidates who are very good in the sports, those who have participated in Olympics or national games. Such excellent people, we recruit them in our railway service. Similarly, we appoint some people against scouts and guides quota. So we can, once they join the railway service, they will continue to participate in sports activities as well as scouts and guides activities. Simultaneously, they will be working against the post where they are posted. They may be office clerk, they may be station master, they may be accounts clerk, it is like that. And appointment against the cultural quota. So we recruit some very few candidates who are very excellent in cultural activities also. So these are the various ways. And also appointment to the land users. So sometimes what will happen, we railways, we take the land for construction of buildings or laying the track, because sometimes we need land, because land will be in the hands of some private people. Take land from them through state government and we pay some amount to them. And simultaneously we'll give appointment to any one of the family members of that land user. Either land user himself can take the appointment or he can ask appointment to his wards, children. And engagement as substitutes. Substitutes engagement means, suppose we are having vacancies and we are not able to fill up the vacancies through open market due to some reasons. In such cases, we engage some people as substitutes against those vacancies. And once the work is completed, or once the vacancies are filled through proper method of recruitment, then these substitutes the process of these substitutes can be terminated. At present, we are not resorting to this engagement of substitutes, except engaging them as a bungalow prince. Here in railways, bungalow prince means the junior administrative grade officers and above grade officers, they will be given an assistant, a person according to his willingness, he can engage to help him in the housework. So for such persons, railway will pay salary. So this is called engagement of substitutes as bungalow pins. So these are the various ways how an employee or a candidate can enter into the railway service. Now let us see how the railway employee will go out of the railway service, how he will exist on the railway service. The first one is superannuation on attaining the age of 60 years. You all know very well that in central government, the retirement age is 60 years. Once who attains the age of 60 years, he will compulsorily be, he has to retire from service. And in case of railway doctors, railway doctors means those doctors who are working for railways, who are recruited for railway services, health services. Those doctors can continue in service up to 62 years. After that only they can retire from service. Suppose if such doctors wants to continue in service beyond 62 years, another 3 years time will be given, so they can continue up to 65 years and retire from service. So that is superannuation retirement. Then voluntary retirement after 20 years of qualifying service. Suppose there is no need that one employee should continuously work for 60 years, up to the age of 60 years. He doesn't want to work, he can leave the railway service by taking voluntary retirement. So voluntary retirement condition is that he should have put in 20 years of qualifying service. If anybody is having less than 20 years of qualifying service, he cannot take voluntary retirement under this scheme. The third one is voluntary retirement under attaining the age of 55 years or 30 years of service. This is also one type of voluntary retirement. Those who have completed 55, who have attained the age of 55 years or completed 30 years of service, they too can go under voluntary retirement. That is separate scheme. There are two schemes of voluntary retirement in railway. That is 20 years of qualifying service, and another is 55 years of age or 30 years of service. Then resignation. Some candidates, once they join the railway service, after some time they resign to take good job in some other organization. So they resign. For that, there is no any service required. At any time, he can resign and go. The employee can resign and go. So it should have it should have the approval of the competent authority. Just giving the resignation letter and going is not permissible. For everything, competent authority is approved. Competent authority means the authority who is competent to appoint the employee. Then retirement or medical invalidation. 2 days back I told you, periodically our employees have to be sent for the medical examination to ascertain whether they are fit to perform the duties which they are performing now. So once they are not fit, they are found not fit to be continued in that particular post due to medical unfitness, the such employees can take voluntary retirement. Voluntary retirement, they can ask for retirement on medical grounds. So such like that they can go away from the railway service. And deputation to other organization and subsequent absorption. What will happen? Some employees, some officers, after working some time in railways, they may like to go on deputation to other organization. For example, Niti Ayog, for rights, many public sector undertakings are there. Central government undertakings are there. State government undertakings are also there. They can go on deputation initially. Afterwards, they can get absorbed there itself. They can become the employees of that organization by tendering a technical resignation to the railways. So like that they can quit the service. And compulsory retirement on service review. Here what happened? For suppose every employee who is recruited in railway service, they have to work for the railway service sincerely and honestly, and they have to show the progress also. But sometimes what will happen? Some employees, they don't show any interest in the working. They don't show any interest of working. To whatever action you take against them, they don't change their ways. In such cases, what will happen? We ourselves we send them out of service because we cannot take DR action because he is not doing any grave misconduct. But only thing is lethargy. He don't want to do the work. Always he's argumentative type. He is putting spokes in our work. He doesn't want to do the work. He may be disturbing the other employees. It will be like that. So in such cases, what we'll do? We'll review his services and we'll say that we can compulsorily retire him from service. So such a procedure is there. That is a fundamental rules 56J. Separate rule is there. So under that, these people's services can be reviewed and they can be sent to home. Every year, what we'll do? Every employee's services will be reviewed by a committee nominated by the competent authority. Those people will go through the service records of these employees and they will recommend whether these employees should continue in service or they should be sent out of the railway service. That review, like that, by conducting that review, we can send some employees out of our railway service. And compulsory retirement, removal, dismissal from service for grave misconduct under discipline appeal rules. You know, if any employee does any grave misconduct, we take disciplinary action against him, departmental action, and we conduct inquiry. Then we can remove him from service or dismiss him from service, or we can compulsorily retire him from service. That is one way of going out of the railway service. The other thing is death while in service. Once employee dies means, so naturally we have to give whatever settlement dues he is eligible. Those settlement dues have to be given to his family members. Then missing. Sometimes what will happen? Employee will be missing. Where he goes, nobody knows. His family doesn't know. His office also doesn't know. He is not attending the office. Finally, what will happen? The family members wait for some time. They file FIR before the local police. Local police, they will make necessary investigation into the matter. And finally, if they don't find that person, they will give a certificate that they have not found this person. So that person will be treated as missing employee. Once he is missing, then we have to remove his name from the our rolls, and whatever settlement dues he is eligible to get, those settlement dues can be given to the family members or paid by his family members. Okay, that is how one can come into the service and one can go out of the service. Okay. Here retirement benefits I told you. Retirements. Once the employee is leaving the service through various modes, then he is eligible for retirement benefits. So who are eligible for retirement benefits? Who are not eligible for retirement benefits? In which cases we can pay retirement benefit, which cases we cannot pay the retirement benefit. Let us see. retired on superannuation. So in such cases, the employee who was superannuated, who has retired on attaining the age of 60 years, is eligible for retirement benefits. Then retired on voluntary retirement. So retired on voluntarily retired. Okay. Under this scheme, if anybody retires, he is eligible for retirement benefits. Retired on medical grounds. Such employee is also eligible for retirement benefits. Died while in service. So if he dies, naturally whatever dues we have to pay to him, that will be paid to his family members. Then compulsorily retired from service. So if the employee is compulsorily retired by service review or by taking disciplinary action, in such cases also we can pay settlement dues. We have to pay all his retirement benefits. Then tender technical resignation for absorption in other organization. I told you after working, sometimes people will go on deputation to other organizations, subsequently they get absorbed in those organizations. In such cases also, we will pay settlement dues for the service, for the period of service rendered by him in the railways. For that period, we can proportionately calculate the settlement dues and will pay to him. Similarly, in the case of missing employee case also will treat him as a death case and will pay the settlement dues to his family members. Who is not eligible? So the employee who is resigning and going out of railway service, he will not be paid any settlement dues. Pension gratuity will not be given to him. So employee who is resigning and going, we don't pay anything to him because he has resigned. And employee removed from service or dismissal from service. In such cases also, we will not pay any settlement dues to such employees. However, a removed or dismissed employee can be sanctioned compassionate allowance, which should not be more than 2/3 of the normal pension gratuity. This small relaxation is given in this rule, where employee is removed or dismissal from service for the grave misconduct he has committed. For him, he can be sanctioned a certain allowance. That allowance is called compassionate allowance. That compassionate allowance, it will be given every month. So that allowance is equal to 2/3, not more than 2/3 of the normal pension and gratuity. If he retires, what he gets, in the 2/3 only will give if he is compulsorily retired. What are the retirement benefits? We are using the word retirement benefits. What are these retirement benefits consists of? Let us see. See, the first one is monthly pension. So as long as we are in service, we will get salary, monthly salary. Suppose if you retire from service, what we'll get? We'll get pension. That pension is given monthly. Then computation of pension. The computation of pension means surrendering certain portion of pension to the government and in lieu of that, taking lump sum amount. So we surrender certain amount of pension what is sanctioned to us, and in that in its place we'll get lump sum amount. We'll get lump sum amount. Then family pension. As long as employee is there, he is eligible for family pension. Employee after retirement is eligible for family pension. So then he will be called pensioner. After retirement, when he starts taking pension, he is called pensioner. If that pensioner dies, then what will happen? The pension what he was receiving, that will be given to the his family member. Family member means spouse first. First chance will be given to the spouse. If spouse is not eligible to get the family pension, then it will go to the children. So that is called family pension. That is called family pension. How much it will be given, how it is calculated, that we'll see subsequently. Then retirement gratuity or death gratuity. If the employee after attaining the age of 60 years, if he retires from service, he will be given retirement gratuity. Suppose he takes voluntary retirement, there also will give retirement gratuity. Suppose employee dies while in service, so his family will be given death gratuity. It is a lump sum amount. It is not like a pension every month to be given. Pension will be given every month, but death gratuity will be given only once. It is a lump sum amount. How it is calculated, we will see subsequently. Leave encashment. So every year, employee is eligible for certain leave. He has to avail it. That in advance, that leave will be credited to his leave account. That employee has to avail that leave. Suppose if he is not in a position to avail the leave, or if he doesn't want to avail the leave, whatever leave balance is there in this year, that will be carried forward to the next year. Like that whatever leave he is not availing, that will be getting accumulated. So at the end of the service, he can encash it, but that limit is only 300 days. If he is having more than 300 days leave, that cannot be encashed, only it is 300 days. So while maintaining the account itself, we will restrict it to 300 days. Anything beyond that, it will lapse. Then PF balance. This provident fund account will be there for every employee. So that whatever balance is there in this PF account, along with the interest on that, entire amount will be given to the employee on his retirement, on quitting the service. Then group insurance scheme. This is one type of insurance scheme available in railways, that is in central government. That is available in central government. So after the retirement of the employee, whatever amount is there in the savings fund, that will be given. In case the employee dies, Incidence amount also will be given to the family members of that particular employee. How much it will be given, we'll see subsequently. Composite transfer grant. It is a transfer grant to enable the employee to go and settle wherever he wants after retirement. So normally to get the appointment, once we get the appointment, we will come and join the railway service, and we will be transferred from one place to other on promotion, on administrative grounds like that. So a day will come that we have to retire from service. After retirement, we have to make our mind where to go and sit, where to settle. So normally people will like to go to their native places. There they go and settle. So to enable them to go and settle there, a lump sum amount will be given to them to enable them to go and settle. So it is called composite transfer grant. Then fixed medical allowance. Similarly, fixed medical allowance also will be given to the railway employees. So we are having our own railway hospitals, our own railway doctors. So any employee or his family members, they fall sick, they can go to the railway medical doctor and take the treatment in our railway medical hospital. Similarly, after retirement also, the retired employee, that is pensioner. The pensioner is also pensioner as well as his dependent family members. They are eligible to take medical treatment in our railway hospitals. So if they are not within nearer to the railway medical facility, so such employees will be given certain fixed medical allowance to enable them to take treatment, OPD treatment outside. Then post-retirement complementary passes. We are railway employees, we are working railway, we are eligible for privilege passes and privilege ticket orders. So on privilege account, we can utilize our free passes to travel from one station to other station, as well as privilege ticket orders. Privilege ticket orders means we have to purchase the ticket by paying only 1/3 of the fare. Only 1/3 of the fare we have to pay and take the PTO. That is privilege ticket order. We can use it. Even after retirement also, that facility is available. That facility is called post-retirement complementary passes. Even after retirement also, passes will be given to the retired employees to travel free. Such employees are not eligible for PTO. Privilege ticket order is not eligible. Only for them, only complementary passes are given to them after retirement. And widow pass. Widow pass means suppose as long as employee is there, his family members, his wife, children can travel along with him in the pass. So if the employee retires from service, as a pensioner, he can use these complementary passes, post-retirement complementary pass. He can travel along with his wife and children. I am using means she also. If the employee is a female employee, her husband can travel and along with the children. So if the employee dies while in service or the pensioner dies after retirement, then his wife is eligible or his wife is eligible for widow pass. Similarly, if it is a male employee, a female employee, so her husband is eligible for this widow pass. Then retention of railway quarters. If any employee is staying in the railway quarters at the time of retirement, he can be allowed to continue in the railway quarters for certain time with certain conditions. He need not immediately vacate the quarters on the day of retirement. He can be allowed to continue in railway quarters for some time, and after that he has to vacate the quarters. So all those things we will see in the coming slides. Employees appointed before 1/1/2004 are eligible for monthly pension under old pension scheme. So those who are appointed prior to 1/1/2004, they are coming under the old pension scheme. Employees appointed on or after 1/1/2004, they come under new pension scheme under NPS, National Pension Scheme is there. For them, new pension rules are applicable. Those who are appointed after 1/1/2004 and those who are appointed after before 1/1/2004. These are the two things we are going to see today. Let us see pension. That is old pension. Okay. Pension is equal to 50% of the basic pay last drawn by the employee at the time of retirement. How much pension will be given? That question will come. After retirement, how much pension will be given to the employee means 50% of the basic pay what he was drawing at the time of retirement. Suppose at the time of retirement, employee's basic pay is 80,000 rupees. You presume, only example I am telling. At the time of retirement, employee's basic pay is only 80,000 rupees. Out of that, only 50% will be given to that employee as a pension at the time after his retirement. That is 40,000 rupees will be given. 50% of 80,000 is equal to 40,000 rupees will be given. In the case of running staff, that is loco pilots and guards, those who are driving the trains, who are working in the trains, that they are called running staff. I told you already. In the case of running staff, additional 55% of the basic pay will be added to the basic pay as element of running allowance. Suppose employee's basic pay is 1 lakh rupees. He is a loco pilot or he is a guard. His basic pay is 1 lakh rupees means For that, another 55,000 rupees will be added. Put together, his basic pay will come. So on that 50% will be given. For running staff, we have to add another 55% to the basic pay. So on that, we have to calculate 50%. Whatever amount comes, that will be his pension. In the case of railway doctors, additional 20% of basic pay will be added to the basic pay as non-practicing allowance. I am using the word of railway doctors because these doctors are recruited for railway service. Their job is only to serve the railway employees and their family members in our railway hospitals. They should not do the private practice. So 24 hours they should be available for railway employees as well as railway employees family members. Here employees, I am telling employees means officers also. So all railway officers for these doctors should be available. That's why to enable them to be available for railway officers as well as staff, 20% of basic pay will be given to them as a non-practicing allowance. For not practicing, we are giving this allowance. That is for non-practicing allowance. This 20% will be added to their basic pay, last basic pay, while calculating the pension in their cases. Employees should have put in minimum 10 years of qualifying service for the pension. So pension means today you have joined and tomorrow you are retiring means immediately 50% of the last basic pay cannot be given as a pension. So the condition is employee should put in minimum 10 years of qualifying service. He should have put in 10 years of qualifying service from the date of his appointment. What is this qualifying service? Qualifying service means total service minus non-qualifying service is equal to qualifying service. Total service minus non-qualifying service is equal to qualifying service. Total service means from the date of appointment to date of retirement. Entire service will be taken as total service. In that, we have to minus the non-qualifying service. We have to remove the non-qualifying service. Then we can get the qualifying service. What is this non-qualifying service? Non-qualifying service means periods of unauthorized absence, suspension, dies not, etc. Suppose any employee goes under unauthorized absence. Unauthorized absence means not authorized absence. Employee, whenever he wants to go, he has to take leave from the competent authority because he is eligible for LAP and LHAP. He has to take that leave. Without taking sanction from the competent authority, employee doesn't, he is not attending for duty means we will mark him absent. Such absent period is called a non-qualifying service. Similarly, suppose employee has committed a grave misconduct, initially we will place him under suspension. I told you already, we will place him under suspension for some time. Afterwards, after completion of fact-finding inquiry, everything, we will take him back to duty. That is, we will revoke the suspension period, the suspension order. So the suspension period is also to be treated as non-qualifying service unless it is regularized as duty or leave due. If it is not regularized as duty or not regularized as leave due, then the suspension period is to be treated as non-qualifying service. Dies none. Dies none means no work, no pay. Suppose any employee goes on strike for 1 or 2 days. So for not performing the duties during that 2 days, we will not pay him salary. That is called dies none. So that period also will not be qualified as a qualifying service. That is to be treated as non-qualifying service. So like that, from total service, if you remove this non-qualifying service, then qualifying service will come. For pension purpose, 10 years of qualifying service should be there. And pension, we pay dearness allowance also. Employee is eligible for dearness allowance while in service. Pay plus DA will be getting. Pay plus dearness allowance will be getting. On retirement also, this retired employee, this pensioner is eligible for dearness allowance, which is called a dearness relief on his pension. The rate of dearness relief is same as dearness allowance. At present, dearness allowance is 17% on basic pay. Same 17% is applicable to pension also, which is called dearness relief. If the employee is having less than 10 years of qualifying service, then what will happen to him? Suppose he has put in 9 years of service and retired or something has happened to him. Then, if he has put in less than 10 years of qualifying service, he will be paid service gratuity. The service gratuity is a lump sum amount. Only one-time payment will be given, not monthly. How the service gratuity is calculated? Service gratuity is 50% of basic pay for each completed 6-monthly period of service. Suppose, for example, employer has put in 9 years of service. For 9 years of service, how many 6 months will be there for 9 years service? 18 6-month periods will be there in that. So whatever basic pay he was drawing, in that 50% will multiply it with the 80. So then lump sum amount will come. That amount will be given as a service gratuity to the employee on his retirement with less than 10 years qualifying service. Commutation of pension. I told you certain amount of the pension can be surrender to the government and take lump sum amount. How much amount we can surrender to the government to take the lump sum amount? Maximum 40% of the pension can be surrendered. It is not compulsory. It is up to the pensioner to surrender or not to surrender. If he wants entire pension, 100% pension he wants to avail, he can take it. But if he want to surrender it, he can surrender any percentage, 5%, 10%, 20%, 30%, but maximum 40% he can surrender to the government, to the railways, and take lump sum amount. What is that lump sum amount? How that lump sum amount is calculated means one formula is there. That is committed amount proposed to surrender into 12 in age factor as on next birthday. So committed amount. For example, I will give one example also. How much amount the employee wants to surrender, and that is to be multiplied by 12 and further multiplied by age factor as on next birthday. Next birthday, what will be the age factor? So what is this age factor? Government has already prescribed the age factor. See, this is I have taken only from 51 to 61 years I have taken. So we take superannuation case. When the employee retire on superannuation at the age of 60 years. So 60 years, if he retires, what would be his age in the next or at the next date of birth? 61 his age. So 61, what is the equal computation factor to that? 8.194. This figure is given by the government. That table we have to follow. 8.194. How this 8.194 is calculated government, that is separately is there. Lot of time is required to explain that. That you can learn also. That it is available everywhere. It is available. If you see in the search, if you search in the net also, it is available. So 61 years. If the employee is retiring at 60 years, so we will take age factor of 61 years, and that will be calculated. See, I have shown one example. Basic pay at the time of retirement is 80,000. You take 80,000 is the basic pay, and the monthly pension will be 40,000. That is 50% of the 80,000. That is 40,000 is pension. So 40% of the pension will be how much? 16,000. It will become 16,000. So if he wants to surrender this 16,000, how much amount he will get? The calculation will be like this: 16,000 into 12 into 8.194. Then total amount, how much it will come? 15,73,248 will come. By surrendering 16,000 rupees, the employee will get lump sum amount of 15,73,248. Okay. So by surrendering that, what will happen? The residual pension, that is balance pension, will be 40,000 minus 60,000, which equal 24,000. Hereafter, employee will get only 24,000 rupees as pension. Otherwise, he is eligible for 40,000. Having surrendered 16,000 rupees for lump sum amount, that is called commutation of pension. So the employee will start getting pension of 24,000 rupees per month. So that is the calculation, simple calculation. How long he will?
Sir, this commuted.
Pardon? Tell me.
Sir, commutated value. When will we get this value?
Yes.
So how much time we have to keep it in?
See this. Please see this slide. So after 15 years, the computed portion of the pension will be restored. So 15 years, employee will draw only 24,000 rupees per month. After completion of 15 years, his original pension will be restored. That is 40,000 rupees will be given to him. So he will be given 40,000 rupees after completion of 15 years. For 15 years, he will draw the pension. So here, after completion of this 15 years period, he need not return the lump sum amount back to the railways. That 15 lakh rupees what he has taken, that need not be returned. That need not be returned. So only 15 years he will draw less pension. After completion of 15 years, his original pension of 40,000 rupees will be restored. Okay, this is called computation of pension and restoration of computed portion of pension. Let us come to the family pension. So if the employee is there, we will pay him pension. If employee is not there, we have to pay the family pension. I told you family pension to be given if the employee is not there. If the employee dies while in service or after retirement, his or her spouse is paid pension. This pension is called family pension. So if the employee dies while in service or dies after retirement, once he retires, he will become pensioner. If that pensioner after some time he dies, then his wife or husband, that is what the employee is. So that person will be given this family pension. How much family pension will be given to that person? The family pension is 30% of the basic pay drawn by the employee at the time of retirement. So at the time of retirement, what pay the employee was drawing, on that 30% will be calculated and given to the family of that person, that is wife or husband. That amount will be given as family pension, 30%. Normal pension retirement, if the employee is alive, he will get 50% of the pay what he has done at the last time. If the family pension is to be given, it is calculated at the rate of 30% of the last paid on. In case of running staff and doctors, as 25%, 20% it should be added to the last pay drawn by him. This is family pension. First, the family pension will be given to the wife or husband in the case of female employee. So after that, it will go to the children. It will go to the children. How it will be given children? There may be 2 or 3 children will be there. Whom it is to be given? First, boys to be given or girls to be given. It is not like that. It is to be given according to the date of birth of the children. Whoever may be elder, that person will get. Once he becomes ineligible for that family pension, that will go to the another child. It is like that. When that child will become ineligible for the family pension, after attaining the 25 years of age, that child will become ineligible for receive the family pension. So then automatically it will go to the next child who is below 25 years old. Similarly, if that child gets married, that will go to the second child. Similarly, that child starts earning independently. Then the family pension what we are giving to that child, that's son or daughter, that will be stopped and it will be given to the other child. After complete exhausting all these people, there will not be anybody to give the pension. But however, if the physically handicapped child or mentally retarded child is there, such a child will be given this family pension till its death. The child will get that family pension till its death. If the child is physically handicapped or mentally retarded. If such child is not there, then what will happen? So after exhausting all these people, thereafter it is paid to the divorced or widow daughters, subject to the condition that she should have taken divorce or become widow before the death of the pensioner or family pensioner and dependent on them. It is a condition. So divorce should have been taken while the pensioner or family pensioner was alive, or the daughter should have become widow before the death of the pensioner or family pensioner, and should be dependent on that person. Then only this widow pension, this secondary family, this is called secondary family pension. This family pension will be given to the divorced or widow's daughter. But it is not there in the case of sons. It is only in the case of daughters. Divorced son or widow's son, they will not get this secondary family pension. Family pension cannot be commuted. Retirement pension we can commute. Employee can commute and take the lump sum amount, but family pension cannot be commuted. There is no provision for commutation of family pension. Dearness relief is paid on the family pension also. So we pay dearness relief on family pension also. At present, 17% is the dearness relief. Additional pension. So pension for pensioner or family, the pension for family pension is increased by 20% on reaching 80 years of age. This is called additional pension. Suppose the pensioner or family pensioner, they reach the age of 80 years and drawing the pension that family pension, such people will be given additional 20% will be given, additional pension will be given at the rate of 20%. That is called additional family pension or additional pension. If such person reaches 85 years, it will be increased to 30%. If such person reaches 90 years, then it will be 40 years. If he reaches 95 years, it will be 50%. If that person reaches 100 years, it will be 100%. Dearness relief also paid on this additional pension. Gratuity. So far we have learned monthly pension. We have learned about the monthly pension. Now gratuity. We'll see what is gratuity, how it is given. It is in addition to the monthly pension, retirement gratuity is also paid to the employee on retirement. This is one-time payment of lump sum amount. So retirement gratuity is a lump sum amount. For retirement gratuity, employee should have rendered more than 5 years of qualifying service. This is the condition. He should have rendered more than 5 years of qualifying service. For pension, it should be 10 years of qualifying service. For gratuity, 5 years are sufficient. If the employee put in 5 years of service, then he is eligible for retirement gratuity. If the employee dies before retirement, his spouse is paid death gratuity. So death gratuity will be given to the spouse if the employee dies while in service. The formula for calculation of retirement gratuity is as under. This is the formula given by the government. 1/4 of emoluments for each completed 6-monthly period of service, subject to 16.5 times of emoluments and further limited to 20 lakhs rupees. This is the formula. 1/4 of emoluments for each completed 6-monthly period of service rendered by him, subject to 16.5 times of emoluments and further it is limited to 20 lakh rupees. Here, emoluments word I have used. Here, emolument means only basic pay plus DA. Basic pay plus DA, not any other allowances. Only basic pay plus dearness allowance. These two only emoluments. For running staff, 55% will be added as usual. For doctors, railway doctor, 20% will be added to their pay. So that like that we calculate his emoluments. Here you see 1/4 of pay plus DA into total service multiplied by 2, or 16.5 times of pay plus DA, or 20 lakh rupees, whichever is less. So these three calculations we have to make based on his pay, and then we have to see whichever is less, that will be his gratuity. That is a gratuity. One example you please see here. Basic pay I have taken 80,000 rupees. DA 17% amounts to 13,600 rupees. Total it is coming to 93,600 rupees. Total service that employee has rendered, total 35 years of service in railways from the date of his appointment to date of retirement. So it means it will 76 monthly periods. 35 years means 76 monthly periods. So emoluments 93,600 it has come. 1/4 of the emoluments amounts to 23,400 rupees. Now we have to calculate retirement gratuity. How we have to calculate the retirement gratuity? First is 23,400 into 35 into 2. It comes to 16,38,000 rupees, or 16.5 times of the emoluments. It will come to 15,44,400 it is coming. That is subject to maximum of 20 lakhs rupees, whichever is less. Here, which is the lowest one? 15,44,440 is the lowest one. So that will be his retirement gratuity. Oh,
Is there any deduction for gratuity in the monthly salary?
Is there any?
Is there any deduction in the salary for gratuity?
No. It is not there. It is not there. No amount will be deducted from the employee's salary while he is in service to pay the gratuity. Then death gratuity. If the employee dies while in service, each spouse is paid death gratuity. Spouse will be paid death gratuity. But here, this 5 years condition is not there. It is calculated like this. This is the formula given by the government. If the employee dies with less than 1 year of service, then 2 times of the emoluments will be given as gratuity, death gratuity to the wife, that is our husband. If less than 1 year, he has joined the service, he has before completion of 1 year of service, unfortunately he died, then 2 times of emoluments will be given. If he has put in 1 year of service but died before completion of 5 years of service, then 6 times of the emoluments will be given. If he has put in 5 years service but less than 11 years of service, then 12 times of the emoluments. If he has put in 11 years of service but less than 20 years, then 20 times of the emoluments. Suppose if he has put in 20 years of service and died before attaining the age of retirement, then how the death gratuity is calculated? Half of emoluments for every completed 6 monthly period of service, subject to maximum of 33 times of the emoluments, or 20 lakhs rupees, whichever is less. It is a formula. So the previous formula, how we have done, in the same way here also we have to do. You can practice it also. 1 or 2 problems on your own. You please make example and do it. Here emolument means basic pay plus DA. For running staff, as usual, 55% and 20% for doctors.
Sir?
Yes, ma?
Sir, what is the rationale for having 55% additional for running staff?
Yes. Here what has happened, no? So the nature of work, what this running staff perform, what they are doing the work, comparatively it is little hard. It is hard. To compensate that hard work, the trade, the employees associations, since very long time, means nearly we can say that 30, 40 years back itself, they fought with the government and they demanded for additional allowance for that. So to compensate, to give some additional benefit to them, this has been taken as 55%. Actually, they asked for 70%, but government has accepted only 55%. That is the reason. Similarly, in the case of doctors, 20% the government itself is giving to them, but whereas this 55%, why we are giving them? Suppose if I am station master, I will be in the station only. I am not taking any risk. But a loco pilot is taking risk. He is running the train on the track with a high speed. So anything happens, first he will die. So he is putting his life into risk. So for that, certain compensation, extra compensation is to be given That's why this 55% they are adding to the pay at the time of retirement. As long as they are in service, their basic pay will be added with 30%. Suppose my basic pay as a station master is only 1 lakh rupees, means the same 1 lakh rupees is equal to 1,30,000 for loco pilots, or the 1,30,000 rupees will be given. It is like that. If the employee is under the provisional pension, so provisional pension means it is not a final pension. Sometimes we have to sanction only provisional pension to the employee when if the employee is under suspension, it is suspended, I have written. You have to correct it. Huh? So if the employee is under suspension or any disciplinary action or criminal case is pending against him, at the time of retirement, no settlement dues will be paid to the employee till the finalization of the case. So this is the condition. So if he is under suspension or any disciplinary action is pending against him or criminal case is pending against him, we will not pay him any settlement dues. However, full monthly pension will be paid to him as a provisional pension, because otherwise he will not have the salary. After retirement, he will not have the pension, means he as well as his family members have to suffer. So that's why provisional pension, that is 100% of the pension will be given to him. In the previous example, I have taken 80,000 rupees as a basic pay at the time of retirement. In that 50% is calculated to 40,000 rupees. So that 40,000 rupees, out of that he can commit 40%, up to 40% commit. But in this provisional pension, employee cannot commit the provisional pension. 100% provisional pension will be given to him till such time the case is finalized pending against him. Employee cannot commit the portion of the provisional pension for lump sum amount. Employee can do this after finalization of the case. He can go for commutation only after finalization of the case as well as after sanctioning the final pension. The president only is the competent authority to impose the penalty of cut in pension or gratuity or both if charges are proved in the inquiry. Suppose after completion of disciplinary action or criminal case and the employee is found guilty and he has been imposed some penalty, means what penalty we can impose at the time on the retired employee? We cannot withhold his passes, we cannot withhold his increment, we cannot reduce him in grade or pay because he is no more in service. So in such cases, only available thing is pension and gratuity. Gratuity we can cut or withhold. So that can be done only by the President of India, not by any other authority. So the case will continue. Once the case is finalized and he is found guilty, then only cut in pension or gratuity or withholding of pension or gratuity can be done, that too by the President of India. So entire case file will be sent to the President of India through Railway Board. Then President will impose the penalty. So once he imposes a 10% cut in pension or 20% cut in pension, means the remaining pension only will be given to the employee. The remaining pension will become final pension. That final pension he can commit for lump sum amount. So this is about provisional pension.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, ma.
Sir, in case of gratuity, sir, if someone is changing their department or someone is shifting from railway to some other organization, sir, can they transfer this gratuity to the department from where they are shifted?
Yes, ma. Yes. Sometimes what will happen in our railways also is happening. Sometimes what will happen after putting some years of service here, after putting service, if that person goes to the other organization, and that organization is having the same pension scheme like this, so whatever service he has rendered here in our railways, that will be counted there for the purpose of settlement dues, this gratuity as well as pension. If that organization is not having the pension scheme as like railways, then he will be paid pension as well as gratuity only to the service rendered in the railways, and there he will not get any pension or gratuity in the new organization. So we will pay him pension. Suppose if he is having that scheme there, means this entire service what he has rendered here, that service will be transferred there for the purpose of calculation of the pension and gratuity, and that amount will transfer to that organization. So it will not go to the employee when he is going and joining that other organization. Whatever pension and gratuity liability is there with the railways, that amount will be transferred to that organization. That organization will give that amount to him at the time of his retirement in that organization. It is like that.
Thank you,
So
sir.
let us go to welcome. On National Pension Scheme, let us come to the people who are appointed after 1/1/2004. So whatever so far we have seen, pension, gratuity, computation of pension, family pension, all those things are not applicable in the cases of the employees who are appointed after 1/1/2004. National Pension Scheme. applicable to the employees who are appointed on or after 1/1/2004. Then such employees do not have the PF account. Such employees don't have the PF account, whereas these employees will have the PF account, provident account, who are appointed prior to 1/1/2004. And the NPS account has a permanent retirement account number that is called PRAN number, consisting of 16 digits number. So here the people who are appointed prior to 1/1/2004, they are eligible for PF account. The PF number they will have. But whereas people appointed as on or after 1/1/2004, they don't have any PF account, but they will have this PRAN account they have. Their PRAN, every employee will be given one PRAN, their account will be opened for them. PRAN account will be opened for them, and that PRAN account will have a number. That is a unique number for each employee. So that number consists of 16 digits. How these 16 digits are coming, we'll see. This NPS account has a two-tier system. That is Tier 1 account and Tier 2 account. Two types are there. Two accounts will be there in the NPS system. Tier 1 account and Tier 2 account. Tier 1 account is compulsory for all the employees who are appointed on or after 1/1/2004. Tier 2 account is only optional. It is not compulsory. If the employee wants to join that account, he can join like a bank account. Otherwise, he need not join that. So Tier 1 and Tier 2 account. 10% of the basic pay plus DA is deducted from the salary of the employee and credited to the Tier 1 account every month. For running staff, 55% and doctors 25% will be added to the basic pay. So 10% will go from the employee's salary plus DA. Pay plus DA, here we are taking pay plus DA. 10% will be calculated and that amount will be sent to the Tier 1 account. Tier 1 account commences from the month following the month of appointment. Suppose the employee is appointed in the month of June, means his account starts from first day of the July. Government will also make contribution at the rate of 14% of pay plus DA to the Tier 1 account every month. So government on its own will credit 14% of pay plus DA to the Tier 1 account of the employee. This is in addition to the own contribution to the Tier 1 account. That is 10% plus 14% means 10% plus 14% means a total 24% will be crediting to the Tier 1 account every month.
Sir?
Yes, please.
Sir, for running staff, that means deduction will be more.
Deduction will be more. The pay we have to take 10% of the pay means the basic pay plus day means we are adding 55% also to the basic pay. So that will be more. Earlier it was only 10% up to 31/2019. Okay. Contribution is permissible only when the employee is on duty or LAP. So if the employee is on leave, LAP means leave on average pay, so full salary is eligible during that period. So in such cases only the contribution will be deducted from the employee's salary and it will be credited to the Tier 1 account. If the employee is on a leave on half average pay, that is LHAP, leave on half average pay, only 50% of actual amount will be credited to the Tier 1 account. Because during half pay leave, you will be drawing only half pay salary. So in that 50% means only half pay amount, only 10%, 50%, half of the 10% amount will go to the Tier 1 account. If the employee on extraordinary leave or LWP, leave without pay, or under suspension, no contribution is permissible for that period. If the employee on extraordinary leave means he will be on leave, but there will not be any salary to him during that period. Similarly, leave without pay. If the employee on leave without pay means he will not draw any salary. Similarly, in the employees under suspension, he is not for pay and he is not eligible for pay and allowances. He will be paid only subsistence allowance. So during that period, employee is not drawing duty pay. That's why no contribution will be recorded from his salary and it will be credited to the Tier 1 account. However, on the request of the employee, the arrears amount can be recorded and credited to the Tier 1 account. Employee after coming back to duty, he can ask the administration, he can request the administration, whatever he is due for the Tier 1 account during this period, that may be recovered from his salary and credited to the Tier 1 account. Like that he can request, then it can be done. Employee cannot withdraw the amount from the Tier 1 account while in service. Whatever amount is being credited in his Tier 1 account, employee cannot withdraw that amount. Present rate of interest on accumulated amount is 8%. At present, 8% interest is being credited to the Tier 1 account.
Sir?
Yes, ma'am?
Sir, on what is this rate fixed or it fluctuates on some basis?
It fluctuates, right? It fluctuates. This 8% interest rate is it will be fluctuating. In coming years, it will come down. It will go to 7.9, 7.8. It will reach because now this pandemic is there now. So government may not pay that much of interest on the funds what we have saved. 85% of the amount is invested in debt instruments and 15% of amount is invested in the equity linked mutual funds. This work will not be done by the railways. This will be done by the separate organization in the Ministry of Finance. So whatever amount is accumulated in employees tier 1 account, out of that 85% will go for these instruments, debt instruments, and 25% will be invested in equity linked mutual funds. At the time of appointment, employee has to furnish his biodata particulars and nomination details in the prescribed form. This is very, very important. He has to give his biodata particulars as well as nomination form also. Nomination means that in case anything happens to the employee, the funds to whom these funds are to be paid, whether to the parents or whether to the wife or whether to the children, that nomination employee has to make. Similarly, every employee is given 16-digit PRAN number that I told you. 16-digit number will be there. You will have one account. That account consists of 16 digits. First 4 digits indicate the year of appointment. Suppose you are appointed in 2020, so the first 4 digits shows 2020. Fifth digit indicates the ministry in which you are appointed. So you are appointed in railways. So for railways, it is the 50 digit is 5. If the other people who are appointed in other organization, their number will be different. Sixth, 7th, and 8th digits indicate the zonal railway in which you are posted. Zonal railway or production unit. By seeing the 6th, 7th, 8th digits itself, we can say that in which railway this particular employee is working. For South Central Railway, because this IRFM is in South Central Railway, Secunderabad, that's why I have taken this example. 030 is the South Central Railway's code number. 9th and 11th digits indicate the accounting unit concerned to railway or zonal unit. This PFA, Principal Financial Advisor, is here in South Central Railway. That PFA will have a number. That number is indicated here at the places of 9th, 10th, 11th. Okay. Then 12th, 13, 14, 15, 16. These 4 digits indicate the serial number of the employee in the list of employees appointed in that year. So in that year, many employees will be getting appointment. Officers will get appointed, staff will get appointed. So every time, whenever employee is appointed in railways, so he will be given one serial number. That number will be it will be indicated here. So if he is the number 1 person to get the appointment to 2021 means his number will be 0001. Suppose he is the last person to get appointment in 2021 means December 31st he got appointment in railways. His number will be something, that last number according to the serial. If the employee is transferred from one division to other division, one railway to other railway, or one ministry to other ministry, his or her NPS account will also be transferred. So this will be transferred to them. So because whatever amount is available here, he can take back, and there again he can open new account. It is not like that. So wherever he goes, so this account number will continue. Whatever balance is there it will be going. And there will not be any change in the number. Wherever you are appointed, that number only will be there. The new number will not be there. There will not be any change in the accounting number. NPS works under the supervision of Pension Fund Regulating and Development Authority, PFRDA we call. This PFRDA is in the Ministry of Finance. Employees' records relating to NPS are managed by the Central Record Keeping Agency, that is CRA. The CRA works under the control of PFRDA. PFRDA is Ministry of Finance. The CRA is under the control of PFRDA. Then investing the amount in the equity or debt funds is done by the National Pension System Trust Authority, NPTSTA. So these people will invest. They will be studying the market fluctuations as well as other things, and they will be investing this amount there. So this will be working under control of PFRDA. Record keeping is CRA, investment is NPSTA. Overall in charge is PFRDA, comes under Ministry of Finance. At the time of appointment, employee can exercise the option to invest his NPS amount in any of the following. So employee will be given 3 options to invest his amount like this. So option 1, option 2, option 3 are there. It is called option E, option C, and option D. That numbers they have given, that alphabetical letters they have given. So this first one is high risk and high returns. If the employee wants high returns, he can opt for option E, high risk and high return. Money may come, money may go also. Option C is there, medium risk and medium return. And option G, low risk, low return. So employee can give option for any of these 3 at the time of his appointment. Suppose employee doesn't know how to give option, he may not give the option, but government itself will decide the option for that employee. How government will decide? If no option is exercised, amount is invested in the following manner. This is called auto choice. So if the employee is between 18 and 30 years age, 50% amount will be invested in high risk and high returns. 30% amount will be invested in medium risk and medium returns. 20% amount will be invested in low risk, low returns. After that, from 36 years to 54 years, every year 10% will be reduced from option E as well as option C till that comes to 10%, and 20% will be increased in option C. This mechanism is there. Accordingly, 10% will be reduced in option E as well as 10% will be reduced in option C till such time it comes to the 10%, and every year 20% will be increased in option C. From 55 years onwards, 10% will be in the option E, that is high risk, high returns, 10% in medium risk, medium returns, and 80% in low risk, low returns. So this will be done by the government on its own if the employer doesn't give any option for investment.
Sir,
Yes, please.
sir, in that 36 to 54 year bracket, every year 10% is getting reduced from option E and C.
Yeah.
And again, it is being added to option C.
Yes. So like that, what will become 50% will become 40%, 40% will become 30, 30 will become 20, 20 will become 10. That's all. The option, the second option is there, not 30 will become 20, 20 will become 10. Stop. That is.
Oh, sir, then we are increasing it again in option C. That is what I'm asking.
Yes, because at the young age, what will happen? No, the high risk taking the young people, what they do, they go for the high risk and high returns normally. When the employee grows, his age is advanced, he wants money at the time of retirement. If you put the entire money in the high risk and high returns, if he gets if at the time of retirement he is not going to get the good returns, then he will be in difficulties after retirement. So that's why what they do, they go only for low risk, low returns scheme and put more amount in that.
Sir, then it has to be option G, not C. It is written option C there.
Yes, see here, here from 55 years age onwards, 10% in option B will retain, that will remain like that only. 10% in option C will remain, that is high risk is over, medium risk is also over. Now 80% is coming to low risk, low returns. Low risk, low returns, because let the returns not come, that risk will not be there. Whatever amount he has saved, that amount will come back to him. Suppose if that amount is put in high risk thing and any losses come, so he will not get any amount. So that is the purpose to increase the amount in option G. Low risk, low return. Contribution to type 2 account is optional. There will not be any contribution from government for type 2 account. Accumulated amount from type 2 account, either full or part, can be withdrawn by the employee at any time. Tier 1 is linked with the pension, that is annuity. Tier 1 is linked to the pension, that is annuity. Tier 2 is not linked to the pension, that is annuity. So whatever amount you have saved in Tier 2 will be given, entire amount will be given to you whenever you want. You can withdraw that. Tier 1 account, that is linked to the annuity. So that's why that certain amount will be retained with the government. When the employee retires from service, only a little amount will be given to the employee and the amount will be kept with the government for fetching annuity and due to that employee every year. Employee can exist from Tier 1 account after the age of 60 years. So he has to continue in Tier 1 account in Tier 1 account up to the age of 60 years. If the employee exists in Tier 1 account at or after 60 years of age, 40% accumulated amount will be retained by the government and remaining 60% amount will be given to the employee. In case of 60 years, suppose employee is leaving the service because of death, because of voluntary retirement, because of resignation, whatever it may be. So if he is leaving the service before attaining the age of 60 years, then what will happen? 40% amount will be retained by the government. Yes, 40% retained amount will be used for this part, the first one. This is second point is related to the first one only. So this 40% amount of government is keeping with it only, and that amount will be used for fetching the amount by investing in mutual funds or any other things. And whatever amount is getting, that amount will be given to the employee or his family members monthly. If the employee exits the service from Tier 1 before the age of 60 years, then 80% amount will be returned by the government and 20% will be given to the employee. So this is about the NPS. The details are not available with the railways about this because it is not being maintained by the railways. It is being maintained by the Ministry of Railways. And also whenever every month this PFRDA, they are sending statement for each and every individual employee online on through electronic media, and employee can see how much amount is there in his account and how much amount he has saved, how much amount government has given, how much interest he got on that, and how they are spending that amount also. You can get you will get the information from them. Railway is not having that information with us. Next, coming to the gratuity. Yes, please.
When does this 40% amount come back, which the government keeps it itself?
As long as the employee is alive, that will be given. That will be with the government only. Once the employee is no more, so that entire amount can be kept with the government to pay the pension to the family members, or that entire amount, whatever fund is available, that can be given to the family members of the deceased employee. It is like that. But as long as employee is alive, as long as he is getting this annuity, that amount will not be given to the employee. That is what we got clarification. But still many demands are there from the employees side, employees organizations, officers associations also, organizations also demanding to modify this NPS. But government has not taken any decision on that. Lot of studies are going on this.
So this 60% is given as a lump sum amount.
Lump sum amount. Lump sum amount will be given to the employee at the time of retirement after attaining the age of 60 years.
So, sir, 60% of this and the retirement gratuity both will be given.
Yeah. Gratuity. Here I am telling you, here you see it this time.
Okay.
So that is regarding the pension. That is in lieu of the pension. If the employees who are appointed prior to 1/1/2004, they are eligible for pension, completion of pension, family pension. But these NPS employees, they are not eligible for pension. But for them, this Tier 1, Tier 2 accounts are there. But apart from that, these NPS employees are also eligible for gratuity, like in the case of employees appointed prior to 1/1/2004. So for them, the gratuity is there. We calculated now for gratuity 10 years minimum service should be there, 1/4 of average, 1/4 of emolument for each completed 6 monthly period of service. That formula applies to the NPS also, NPS employees also. So NPS employees are eligible for retirement gratuity or death gratuity as per old pension rules. They are eligible for this gratuity. This lump sum amount will come to them. Employees appointed prior to 1/1/2004 have Provident Fund. Now let us go to the Provident Fund. So Provident Fund, these NPS employees, they don't have the Provident Fund, but Provident Fund account is there for the employees who are appointed prior to 1/1/2004. What is this Provident Fund? Employees appointed prior to 1/1/2004 have Provident Fund account, and monthly subscription will be 1/12 of the basic pay, not basic pay plus DA, only basic pay. It is compulsory. It is compulsory. In the case of running staff, 55% will be added to the basic pay, because at the time of retirement we have to paying pension as well as gratuity by adding 55%. That's why here PF also we are collecting 55% extra from them when compared to the normal employees. The employee can also subscribe more amount to this. So 1/12 is compulsory. This account is compulsory for everyone. Recovery is 1/12 compulsory every month. Employee can also subscribe more amount. That is called voluntary provident fund subscription, VPF. It is called VPF. Employee can withdraw some amount from this PF for certain purposes. He can withdraw some amount during his service. He can withdraw some amount from the balance for certain purposes, and he can take loan also from that fund, and he has to repay it. He can take loan. Loan is called advance here, PF advance, and he can repay it. The entire amount available in the PF account plus interest thereon is paid to the employee on retirement or quitting the service. This will be given to them. And if the employee dies while in service, this amount is paid to the wife or children as indicated by the employee in the nomination form. So that's why every employee should give the nomination form while he is alive. So how much amount, whatever amount is there, how much percentage should be given to the wife, how much percentage should be given to the son, how much percentage should be given to the daughter, we should clearly mention in that. If nomination form is not there with us, it is very difficult for us to disburse that amount. Whether we have to give entire amount to the wife or entire amount to the child, it is difficult. Again, the son, daughter and wife, they may quarrel for this amount. Deposit linked insurance. It is an insurance, a small type of insurance. It is linked to the deposit in the Provident Fund. Why this deposit linked incidence is introduced means employee every month certain amount will be recorded from his salary and credited to the PF account. Employee is given option to withdraw that amount whenever he wants. So when we give that option to the employee will require entire amount because he will not mind. He will not keep anything in the PF account. Every time whenever he wants, he will go and he will apply and take the money from the PF account, like a savings fund, how we are taking the amount from the savings bank account. So like that. But the purpose is defeated because the purpose of the government is that the employee should develop a habit of saving some amount somewhere else. So that's why this provident fund account is introduced. So employee compulsory should save some amount in his provident fund account so that it will be useful for him at the time of retirement. Lump sum amount will come to him. So that's why this incidence also linked to that. So employee, what he has to do in case of death while in service, an amount equal to the average of last 3 months, 3 years balance in PF account is given to the spouse, subject to maximum 60 years. If the employee dies while in service, his family will be given a lump sum amount as insurance up to 60,000 rupees, not entire 60,000 rupees. Up to 60,000 rupees will be given to the family. So it is very useful to the family if the employee dies while in service. For this purpose, what employee has to do? He has to maintain a minimum balance in his PF account as indicated below. He has to maintain a minimum balance at any given point of time during the last 3 years. His PF balance should not be less than this. So level 1 to level 5 employees who are working in level 1 to level 5, they should maintain minimum 10,000 rupees in his PF account. Similarly, level 6 and to level 7 employees, they should maintain minimum 15,000 rupees in his balance. Level 8 and above grade employees, they should maintain minimum 25,000 rupees in their account. So if they maintain this, then his family will be given certain insurance amount subject to maximum 60,000 rupees. NPS employees do not have PF account. So this PF account is only for the non-NPS employees. The another settlement benefit is leave encashment. This is applicable to both new pension scheme people as well as old pension scheme people. Leave encashment. Maximum 300 of days of leave can be encashed. 300 days of leave can be encashed. You know very well, every year, every employee will have the leave account, LAP account or LHAP account. So at the beginning of year, on 1st January, 15 days LAP will be credited to the employee's leave account in advance. Similarly, on 1st July, 15 days leave will be credited to the employee's account in advance. Similarly, 10 days of leave will be credited to the employee's LHAP account on 1st January in advance. Similarly, on 1st July, 10 days in advance. So that is leave account. Well in advance, it will be catered to the employee's leave account. So the employee can avail the leave as and when he requires. If he doesn't avail that leave, that will be carried forward to the next year. It is like that. So employee can accumulate leave like that LAP or LHAP, but maximum accumulation of LAP is limited to 300 days only. Beyond that, he cannot accumulate. Similarly, LHAP, there is no limit for that. He can accumulate any number of days. Every year, 10 days is being credited to his account in 2 installments, 20 days every year. Suppose the employee works for 35 years. So how much amount of the LAP, if he doesn't avail this LHAP, that will get accumulated and a big amount will be there in his LHAP's account. But encashment is permissible only for LAP, not for LHAP. Encashment is permissible only for LAP, not for LHAP. So at the time of retirement, certain amount will be given to the employee that will be calculated as per this formula. Basic pay plus DA by 30, number of days of LAP or LHAP. Here or LHAP I told, I will tell you why that LHAP has been told. So basic pay plus DA by 30, then it will come for 1 day salary. So that number of days, how many LAP days is having? 300 days. That 300 days multiply, if we do multiply, the lump sum amount will come, that amount will be given to the employee. Suppose employee is not having 300 days LAP at his credit, he is having only 250 days at his credit. So 250 days LAP he can encash, but for remaining 50 days he can encash LHAP. He can encash LHAP. So for that purpose I have written LHAP there. Suppose employee is having 300 days LAP, no question of taking LHAP for encashment. Suppose employee is not having 300 days LAP at his credit, he has availed, but only 250 days balance is there, or 240 days is there, or 100 days is there. Then the balance remaining amount will be taken from the LHAP. The part that LHAP leave encashment will be given. So MPS employees are also eligible for this leave encashment. Group insurance scheme. This is one scheme is there for central government employees that is applicable to the railway employees also. Every employee on joining railway service on any day after 1st January will become member to this scheme without from 1st January of next year. Suppose employee has got appointment in 2021, his group insurance scheme account starts from 2022 January 1st. It is compulsory. Every employee automatically he will be taken into this scheme. He has to pay some subscription every month to this scheme. What is the subscription? The subscription rates are like this. If he is a Group A officer, per month 120 rupees will be recorded from his salary and will be credited to the group insurance scheme account. If he is a Group B officer, 60 rupees will be recorded from his salary and will be credited to the account. Group C employee means 30 rupees per month will be recorded from his salary and will be credited to the group insurance scheme account. Out of that amount, whatever recoveries had been made, 120, 60, 30, out of that, 70% of the amount will go to the savings fund and 30% will go to the insurance fund. 70% will go to the savings fund and 30% will go to the insurance fund. In case of retirement, amount accumulated in savings fund will be with the interest will be given to the employee. So in case employee retires after attaining the age of 60 years or goes on voluntary retirement, then only savings fund amount will be given to him, not the insurance amount will be given to him. Only savings fund amount will be given. In case death of the employee, his family will be given savings fund amount as well as insurance amount also will be given. Savings fund amount as well as insurance amount. How much insurance amount will be given means Group A officer will be given 1,20,000 rupees. Group B officer's family will be given 60,000 rupees and a Group B employee's family will be given 30,000 rupees as insurance. NPS employees are also eligible for this scheme. This is group insurance scheme, one of the retirement benefits. Then coming to composite transfer grant. After retirement, employee will be given composite transfer grant. What is this composite transfer grant means? It is a composite, means earlier various things were there. If the employee after retirement goes and settles somewhere, it means various components were there. All those components are clubbed together and a new concept has been composite transfer grant. CTG, it is called CTG is paid to the retired employee at the rate of 80% of his basic pay to enable him to settle at the place as per his wish beyond 20 kilometers from his last place of working. So this is the condition. To receive this amount, employee should retire from service and after retirement, he should go and settle 20 kilometers away from the headquarters. Then how much amount will be given? 80% of his basic pay will be given. For basic pay here, only 30% will be added. In case of running staff, not 55%, only 30% will be taken extra. For doctors, it will be 20%. If it is within 20 kilometers, then the amount will be 1/3 of the 80% of the basic pay. The employee is retired and he is going to settle within 20 kilometers of his last working place. Then only 1/3 of the 80% of the basic pay will be given to the employee as CTG. In case of death of the employee while in service, CTG is paid to his spouse also, to the family also. This will be given to family also, because in the case of death of the employee, now the family will not stay there where he is working. They want to go to their native place. For that purpose, the CTG will be given to the family members also, to the spouse, that is mainly. NPS employees are also eligible for CTG. In addition to these financial benefits, PRC passes also will be given to the retired employee. PRC means post-retirement complementary passes. As long as employee is in service, he is eligible for privilege passes and PT pass for self as well as family members, dependent family members. If the employee retires, he will be given post-retirement complementary passes. For gazetted officers, 3 sets of passes will be given per year. Set means to and fro, going from here and coming back. That is called set. So 3 sets of passes will be given per year. For non-gazetted employees, it will be 2 sets per year. It is like that. Some conditions, service conditions are given. 20 years he has to put in, after 25 years of service, that I have recorded here. Okay. Then medical facilities. Medical facility. So after retirement also, employee can take the medical facility to the hospitals. He has to compulsorily join this railway employees liberalized health scheme, RELHS it is called. In this scheme, compulsorily he has to join. For joining this scheme, last month's basic pay he has to give to the railway administration. He has to pay last month's basic pay to the railway administration to join in the scheme. He need not give. Automatically from settlement dues, railway will refer and take that amount from his settlement dues and automatically this person will be taken as joined in the scheme, and he will be given one medical identity card, as well as for his family members also medical identity card will be given. So with this medical identity card, employee can go to the railway hospital anywhere in India, and he can take treatment as OPD as well as inpatient. Outpatient treatment he can take, as well as outpatient treatment also he can take, he as well as his dependent family. They can take the treatment. If the employee, if there is no railway hospital within 2.5 kilometers distance from his residence, monthly 1,000 rupees will be given to the employee to take OPD treatment somewhere else. It is called FMA. It is called fixed medical allowance. Suppose the employee after retirement, he will go and settle somewhere else according to his wish. So there, railway hospital may be there, may not be there within 2.5 kilometers radius. So then what will happen? The employee have to compulsorily go to some private hospital to take treatment as a OPD outpatient treatment. To compensate that, 1,000 rupees will be given to the employee. So such employees, if they come to the railway hospital, they will not be given OPD treatment. They can be given inpatient treatment. Okay. Medical ID cards will be issued to them. This medical ID card, they have to show and take the treatment. Retention of quarters. Employee is staying in the railway quarters at the time of retirement. He has to vacate it. Otherwise, his settlement dues will not be paid. He has to vacate the quarters. Then only his settlement is gratuity. Otherwise, gratuity will be withheld. So sometimes what will happen? Employee immediately he may not vacate the quarters because he has to see for the accommodation somewhere else. He may take some time, 1 month, 2 months time he may require. So he will be permitted to retain the quarters on his request. CG appointment. Appointment on compassionate grounds also will be given to the railway employees in case the employee dies while in service, not the pensioner. If the employee dies in service, appointment on compassionate grounds will be given either to his wife or to the children according to the wish of the wife. If he is a female employee, the female employee dies while in service, her husband will be given appointment on compassionate grounds, or her children will be given appointment on compassionate grounds as requested by the husband. This scheme is there. Similarly, those who medically decategorized or medically unfitted, such employees also will be given CG appointment. Only condition is that in medical decategorization cases, the employee should have more than 5 years leftover service. Suppose employee is going to retire next year, but this year he is medically decategorized. In such cases, he wants to quit the service and ask for the appointment to his son or daughter, means it is not applicable. It is not acceptable. He should have minimum more than 5 years of service to retire. That is a condition. Education qualification, all other things, upper relaxation, you can read this. Same whatever instructions are there for direct recruitment, education qualification, age and other things, same is applicable here also. This will be subjected to some test. They have to pass in the examination, then only they will be given exam. This will be conducted by senior DPO in the division or deputy CPO in the headquarters. All these subjects are under the control of senior DPO only, personnel department only. Retirement as well as CG appointment, everything. Whatever I told so far, everything is under the control of personnel department officer only. So what are the important things to be done by the personnel officer as far as a retiring employee? You see, it is a duty of the personnel department to arrange payment all settlement dues to the employee without any delay. For this, what the personnel department officer and personnel department staff have to do, they have to prepare and publish the retirement list at least 1 year in advance. Who are the people going to retire next year? That they have to take out and they have to publish it, because they are having entire record. Date of birth is available in the office. Based on the date of birth recorded in the service register, we can easily take out the names of the employees who are going to complete 60 years of service and retiring. Month-wise list we have to prepare and we have to publish well in advance. If what are any mistake is there, it is to be circulated to all the people. General circulation we have to send. The employee should see that if what are any wrong is there in that list, then immediately you should represent to the administration. His representation will be examined, and accordingly any changes or any corrections are to be made in the list, either to continue his name in the list or remove from the list, that we can do. So publishing of list is very, very important. That is the thing to be done by the settlement section in personnel department. Senior DPO, APOs, they should monitor this. It is their prime job as far as retiring employees are concerned. Obtain account certification for total service and qualifying service well in advance. So total service, qualifying service, who will calculate? Personnel department will calculate, but you should have the certification by the accounts department. So well in advance, this is done. Well in advance, these records are to be updated and should be sent to the accounts department for their verification and certification. Unless they certify, we cannot take it to the. Then obtain nomination forms from the employee wherever are not available. So nomination forms are very, very important. If nomination is not there, we don't know to whom that amount is to be paid. So that's why every employee should exercise, he should submit the nomination forms. If wherever nomination forms are not there, our staff should consult them and get the nomination forms from them and preserve. 2 copies, 3 copies will be prepared. One will be with the employee, one will be with the personal department, and one will be with the accounts department. Because ultimately settlement dues have to be arranged only by the personal department and accounts department. So these documents should be available with both personal department as well as accounts department. Obtain application for payment of pension, gratuity, and other retirement benefits from the employee. So obtaining the application also, it is our job only, because employees will be working somewhere else, very far away stations they will be working. Our divisional office will be there somewhere else. So we have to obtain application. It is not possible for employee to leave his work and come up to the divisional office, senior DPO's office and submit the application. So that's why we have our staff, our welfare inspectors are there. For each section, one welfare inspector will be there. That person under his control, under control means he is the welfare inspector of the staff of that 20 to 25 stations or 10 to 50 stations like that. It is his job to consult each and every and obtain the forms, all these forms from him and come and deposit in the office in respective section. It is his job. Normal retirement cases are called NR cases. Here we normally use the words of NR cases and ONR cases as far as the retirement cases are concerned. NR cases mean normal retirement cases. That is who obtained 60 years of age, who have attained the 60 years. ONR cases means those who have voluntarily retired, those who are retired on medical grounds, those who are compulsorily retired, those who have died. Such cases are called ONR cases, other than normal retirement cases. Obtain no due certificate from all concerned. No due certificate also we have to obtain. Employee is due anything for the railway administration. He might have taken house building advance. He might have taken, or he might have taken, or he might have due to his negligence or breach of orders, he might have spoiled some items in the given to him for his custody. So such a due amounts, whatever is there, no due certificate we have to obtain from the employee. Suppose any due is there, that amount should be recorded from the settlement dues of the employee. That we have to do. Obtain quarters vacation certificate also. If the employee is in quarters, we cannot release his gratuity. So that's why quarters vacation certificate also very, very important to process his settlement dues. All these things should be in the file of the employee. Obtain DR, vigilance, CBI and criminal cases clearance. The employee may be having departmental action, vigilance case will be there, CBI case will be there against him, criminal case also will be there against him. All these clearances we have to obtain well in advance. Issue pension payment order. So we have to issue the pension payment order. So ONR cases, we have to arrange the payment on the same month. Suppose he is retiring on 30th of this month means June means on 30th of June, entire amount should be calculated and credited to his bank account. On the same day it should be over. Suppose 30th is a holiday means 29th itself we have to credit entire amount to his bank account. It is NR cases. ONR cases means, so it is not possible to, we don't know today if the employee dies, tomorrow itself we cannot arrange the settlement dues. In such cases, we can take 1 month extra, and every month, last day, we have to arrange the settlement dues for him. That is what I have written in. In ONR cases, on or before the last working day, we have to arrange the settlement dues. Okay, and issue medical ID cards. Medical ID cards also we have to issue along with the pension payment order. Give gold coated silver medal to every retired employee. Every retired employee should be presented with this gold coated silver medal. The staff welfare inspector should guide and help the employees in getting their dues without any delay. So it is the duty of the section welfare inspector, staff welfare inspector to contact each and every retiring employee as per the retiring list, obtain all the certificates and submit in the office. Now this year onwards, what our railway has done, instead of giving paper applications, now it is online. It is made online. So every employee is not conversant with in submitting the applications online. So our welfare inspector should guide them to submit all the papers online to the office, and also he has to see that to arrange the settlement, see that the settlement dues are to be arranged in time to the employee. There should not be any grievance from the employee in this regard, in death cases as well as in retirement cases also. So if you are interested, you should compulsory, not interested, you should compulsorily read these books to understand. Railway Services Pension Rules 1993, amended from time to time. These books are available. It is also available in the net. You can download it and you can read it. Apart from that, you have to read the circulars issued by the Establishment Directorate of Railway Board, Finance Directorate of Railway Board, and Pay Commission Directorate of Railway Board. So these 3 directorates are connected to this pension and gratuity, NPS also. So that's why every day they may be issuing some instructions in the form of circulars that our personal officers, not only personal, everybody, Because this matter not only belonging to the personal department, because settlement dues means every employee, every officer, he should know all these things. They have to read this, understand that, accordingly they have to deal the subject. So these circulars also you can very well see on the Railway Board's website. If you open the Railway Board's website, you can go to the Establishment Directorate, Finance Directorate, as well as Pay Commission Directorate. They browse it. Personal department officer, every day they have to do this work. Then only they will be updated. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. So always you cannot depend upon your subordinates. Sometimes subordinates also may not be in a position to guide you properly. That's why on your own you should be equipped with all these rules and regulations. It is not a big thing. Easily you can understand. And day to day when you start dealing in the field units, easily you can deal. 1-2 cases you could do. Do means you need not physically do as an officer. Somebody will do and the papers will come to you for sanction and approval. Then you can go through all the papers. Easily you can understand also. So this is all about pension, new pension scheme as well as old pension scheme and other retirement benefits. If you have any doubts on this, you please ask me. I will try to clarify. Now time is also 4 o'clock now. If you have any, please ask me. Otherwise, you can contact me. My number is there. I will tell you. Note down my number. You can send WhatsApp also to me. I will give my email ID also if you ask. At any time, you may ask any doubt on personal department matters. Certainly, I will clarify you. My name is Nagaraj Rao JC Nagaraj Rao. My phone number is 9573857411. Stay in Secunderabad. If you got any clarification, any doubt you are having, you please ask me. Certainly, as far as rules are concerned, I will clarify to you. Then I will take leave. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
We'll meet once again. If any good subject is given to me, certainly I want to interact with you once again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.